having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
This is your before and after story. Prepare for an incredible career in nursing. At Southeastern College, experience expert hands-on training. Learn real-world skills in our professional lab and simulated settings. And train for opportunities as a practical nurse, registered nurse, or career advancement with our RN to BSN program. At Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit sec.edu to get started.
Get ready to dive deep into one of the most gripping legal battles of our time. I'm your host, Jim Chapman, and today we're unraveling the high-stakes drama surrounding one of the music industry's most enigmatic figures, Sean Diddy Combs. In a case that has captivated millions, the courtroom has become a battleground for fame, fortune, and the dark secrets that lurk beneath the glittering surface of celebrity life. As the gavel comes down, we'll explore the allegations, the testimonies, and the shocking twists that could change the course of Diddy's legacy forever. Was this case merely a clash of lifestyles or something much more sinister? With each episode, I will bring you exclusive insights, analysis, and witness testimony accounts that will leave you on the edge of your seat. So buckle up as we embark on this thrilling ride through the trial of the century, where the stakes are high, the drama is real, and the truth is anything but certain. This is the trial of Sean Combs. Let's get started. Welcome back. It's been just a few days since I dropped the last episode of the trial of Sean Combs, and I'm back to it. If you'll remember in the prior episode or the episode before that, I mentioned that a juror was being looked at closely, could possibly get removed over what the judge was terming inconsistencies. Well, that has happened. Juror number 6 has officially been booted from the jury. Now, the judge dismissed the juror. This was actually on Monday, June 16th, after a week of back and forth between prosecutors and the defense over what they described as his lack of candor about his living situation. The judge previously said there are several inconsistencies surrounding details about where juror number 6 lives and with whom he lives with. The judge explained that his reasoning for the removal was based on multiple interviews with the juror. The judge told the court that in one instance, juror number 6 had an offhand conversation with a member of the jury department in which he indicated he recently moved in with his girlfriend in New Jersey, where he had been staying most of the time. Now, weeks ago, in a jury interview, the juror said he lived in the Bronx with his fiancée and infant daughter. But in a different interview, when asked where he lived, the juror said he had an apartment in New York where he stayed 4 to 5 nights a week when he was working and doing jury duty. And in yet another interview, he said he lived in New York with his aunt. Quote, the juror is unable to answer simple questions. The judge said June 13th, adding that there are serious questions about the candor of the juror and his ability to follow instructions. So what happens now? Well, after a juror's dismissal, an alternate usually takes their place. Remember, 6 alternates have been on the sidelines in this trial, but they've seen every bit of testimony as if they were a juror. So it won't interrupt anything. Everything's going to continue as normal. However, you don't like to see jurors get removed because it really opens up the appeals process right at that point. If Combs is found guilty, the thing the defense is really going to focus on is, well, they had a juror removed and it screwed everything up. So we'll have to see what plays out, but big breaking news there. And we're going to start off with a quick catch up on what occurred with the testimony for Wednesday, June 11th, which was the last episode that I brought you. Jane testified about the longest hotel night she could remember, saying it occurred around New Year's of 2022. Jane estimated it went on for about 3 days and involved 3 men. Jane testified that after the hotel night, she saw Combs on vacation. He was with another woman, and she texted Combs about her frustration. Quote, "You have made me feel so taken advantage of and regretting everything," the message in part read. Jane testified about a time in 2022 when she persuaded Combs to leave a trip with another woman by threatening to withhold a hotel night. She said, quote, "That was the first time I pulled that card." Jane also confirmed she planned a hotel night for Valentine's Day that year after Combs left the vacation early. She said she had planned to have 2 entertainers in the room at once and acknowledged that it was her idea to do that. Several text messages between Jane and Combs were read out loud to the jury. Those texts illustrated Jane showing affection for Combs. One text from Jane, this was in 2022, following a hotel night, read, quote, "My love for you is unconditional and for life." Another text Jane sent in 2023, around the same time she moved into the home that he still pays for, read, quote, "I love you so much as my friend, my lover, my boyfriend, even though you don't like that word." There was about a 2-month period in which Jane and Combs did not have a hotel night. She testified to that. She said they did spend several days together during that period, which was from April 14th until late June. During one June day, Combs texted Jane about having a hotel night, to which she replied, quote, "Not really in the mood for that part. Don't want to make you mad." And Combs replied saying, "All good." Jane testified for her birthday in 2023. She asked Combs for $15,000 to cover buying an outfit and dinner. Combs, she said, paid for that dinner. Jane also testified she went along with it when Combs said he had entertainment planned for after her birthday dinner. She went on to say she was under the pressure of Combs. The jury also saw text exchanged after Jane learned Combs lied to her and took another woman on a birthday vacation to Turks and Caicos immediately after Combs was with Jane for her birthday. Jane testified she was hurt after being made to have sex with 3 guys. They broke up for several weeks until Combs planned a trip to Turks and Caicos for him and Jane. Now remember, Jane previously testified this was a trip meant to reconnect them and that she told Combs, "I just want us," but it ended up featuring a hotel night. So with that, we're going to continue with today's episode, which is going to cover Thursday, June 12th's testimony. Defense attorney Teeny Garagos, she is continuing her cross-examination with Jane, who enters the courtroom. And right off, Garagos returned to the time around 2023 in December when Cassie filed her civil lawsuit. Jane said that she and Combs were in contact around that time, but it was a difficult period for both of them. Quote, "We were both equally pulled into our own emotional battlefields in every way." Jane said she had hit a wall in the relationship and there was a lot for her to do to wrap her head around that, and that she was expressing her own feelings to him while he at the same time was under a lot of fire for a lot of other things. She confirmed that around this time, Combs told her he was not aware of how she had been feeling. She testified that he said he was sorry she felt that way and did not want her to feel like that anymore. Geragos went on to ask, quote, "At the time you believed him, right?" And Jane responded, "Yes, I did." From that period on, Jane said Combs started encouraging her to be more communicative with him. Geragos revisited the January 2024 Las Vegas trip. Jane confirmed that she went on the trip with her friend and they flew on a rapper's private plane. She said Combs was unaware of the trip because they were on a break at that time. Geragos asked if the rapper was a, quote, icon in the music industry and, quote, very close to Combs, and Jane agreed. She confirmed the trip was for the birthday of the rapper's girlfriend or wife. Jane testified that she and Combs both knew before January 2024 that the entertainer, Antoine, whom she and Combs hired for hotel nights, would also travel and spend time with this rapper and the rapper's significant other. Antoine had told Jane and Combs personally, she said. Jane said she was a little bit surprised to see Antoine at a dinner for the birthday of the rapper's significant other, but no one asked how they knew each other. Later that night, 7 or 8 people were in a hotel room watching Antoine have sex with a woman on the bed, she testified. The rapper, who Jane knew from afar, flirted with Jane in the hotel room, and he, quote, had said something like he thought I was beautiful and always wanted to blank me. Jane also confirmed when asked that at some point she flashed her breast around the group in the hotel room. She said it was a in-the-moment thing. She testified that while they were in the hotel room, the rapper and his partner asked her if she knew anybody else in the lifestyle. She said she reached out to entertainer Sly because at that time she thought Sly was a safe person to recommend. Defense attorney Geragos asked Jane why the couple asked her that. Jane responded that it was possible they had already suspected she and Combs had been involved in similar activities. And she went on to say, or they could have just picked up that energy from me. Jane recounted a birthday celebration Sean Combs planned for her in Miami in February of 2024. It was the first time they were together in person since breaking up in October of 2023. Combs planned a 5-course meal at the property next to his Miami residence and covered the table with gifts and decorations, Jane testified. Jane described the romantic gesture as everything she's always wanted from her relationship. She said they took ecstasy after dinner and acknowledged that she told the defense in a pretrial meeting that she was willing to have sex with an entertainer in front of Combs later that night because Combs did everything she wanted for her birthday. She also testified she realized this was just going to be a forever thing with Combs, referring to those sex encounters. The jury also saw some text between Jane and an entertainer named Paul. This was on February 10th when she asked Paul if he had plans for Valentine's Day. Then they went back to the Cassie Ventura lawsuit, and she confirmed she noticed positive changes in Combs after that lawsuit was filed. She testified they had some growth in the relationship after they got back together in February of 2024. She said, I felt like I could assert myself a little more, and she confirmed Combs acted more loving towards her, spent more quality time with her. She confirmed that she felt closer to him and her love grew stronger. Jane testified about an argument, however, that they had on the night of June 18th of 2024. She estimated by the time the argument began, they had each already consumed 2 shots of tequila and at least 2 glasses of champagne. Jane confirmed the woman they were arguing about lived in Miami and was able to spend more time with Combs because of her proximity. She also confirmed that she and Combs argued about this woman before. Quote, I think it was just a ball of emotions that night. There was just a lot of resentment for so many things. She confirmed that she called Combs a pedophile, even though the woman was not underage. She also called him disgusting and a monster. When she felt like the fight was escalating, Jane went into her bedroom, locking the door. Geragos then asked Jane to confirm that Combs had not touched her at this point, but kept saying, "Are you just not going to talk to me?" When he kicked open the master bedroom door, she said she locked herself in the master bathroom. She yelled at this point she hated him. She wanted him to leave. And of course, I told you this side from the prosecution, but I have to go over it again because there's some things they're trying to catch her in. So Combs kicked open that bathroom door that she locked herself in, and she went into her closet. This is when Jane said she slipped out of a tight dress she was wearing to put on a loose dress that she could put on very quickly. She said she was not able to change her strapped high heels before Combs kicked that door open too. She said she ran downstairs, headed for the front door. Combs caught up with her. He kicked her in the back of the leg. That caused her to fall to the floor. He then pulled her up to her tippy toes in a chokehold, and she couldn't breathe, she said. Geragos asked her to confirm that she previously told the government she almost couldn't breathe, and Jane said yes. Referencing Jane's previous direct testimony, Geragos asked her to confirm that the video she took in the days after that altercation showed injuries around her face but no marks on her neck, and Jane agreed with that. Jane left the house, hid outside for a couple hours, and then returned to her home. She confirmed that when she got back to the house, she was still very upset. She said she brought up the woman they had been arguing about again and again, and I'm pretty sure y'all this is young Miami. She then called Combs a pedophile again, even though the woman was not underage, and she testified that she and Combs went onto a patio area and she punched Combs in the head. She said he then punched her twice in the eye and the forehead, and at some point he punched her in the face. She got a hold of his phone and she called the woman she believed was on a recent family trip with Combs at that point. And I told you about that. The woman told Jane she was worried about the wrong things and shouldn't be panicking. The two women then traded insults on the phone, and Jane said to the woman, quote, "He's beating my ass right now." Combs then hung up the phone. It appeared the woman called Combs back more than once after that, but he didn't pick it up, Jane said. Combs then FaceTimed his assistant, Jonathan, and the assistant told Jane the other woman did not go on the family trip after Combs asked him to confirm that. And at some point during this altercation, Jane said Combs told her to put on lingerie. She then said Combs used her phone to text an entertainer named Antoine to see if he could come over. And when he went to do that, he saw earlier texts. You know how you'll send a text message from your phone, and even if you've deleted text to a certain person, all the text will pop back up when you send that text? That's what happened in this case. And he saw a bunch of texts to Antoine apparently he didn't like. Jane said at this point, she didn't say much of anything. She slipped into sweatpants and drove her car to let Antoine into the gated community. She said that Combs and the entertainer made some small talk before heading in the bedroom. She said Combs gave her a look and pulled her aside in the guest bedroom. And he demanded Jane explain what Antoine meant by mutual friend, which was in the text message chain that Combs saw that he wasn't supposed to see. She said as far as Combs knew, Jane and the entertainer didn't have mutual friends. So Jane told Combs about the January Las Vegas trip with the rapper, which led to a hotel room encounter where she saw Antoine having sex with another woman. I don't know if you remember that from the last episode I brought you. She tells Combs about all this, and she said Combs was outraged by it, and he said, quote, "How could you go to another man's freak off?" So they then go into the bathroom. Combs gets in her face, tells her to take an ecstasy pill, and when Jane told him she didn't want to have sex with Antoine, Combs got in her face again and said, "Is this coercion?" They eventually go into the bedroom where Jane performed oral sex on Antoine. Jane and Combs did not have sex after the session when she was asked, but she did confirm this was not typical of the sex encounters they normally had. She said in the days after the June 2024 altercation with Sean Combs, they started missing each other, and she ended up going to his house for a couple of days. Quote, "It seemed like he was proposing the idea of breaking up, and I was just listening to him. It was like 8 or 9 hours of this breakup conversation." She did confirm they took drugs and had sex during those days without any entertainers. Jane said she was on board with the breakup once she saw Combs was in Wyoming with another woman. This was on the 4th of July of 2024. She said she blocked him and his associates until later that month. She then reached out to him after seeing his mother was sick. The jury was then shown a series of text messages from July of 2024 when Jane and Combs talked about their relationship, many of which came out during Jane's previous testimony on direct examination. According to these messages, Combs told Jane they should just be friends with no beef. And Combs said she disrespected him by going to his friend's freak-off. Jane told Combs in many texts that she wasted 3 years of her life with Combs in hotel rooms. And she said, quote, "Please stop acting like I didn't shelve myself to be just only your girl." In one text, Jane told Combs, quote, "At least say you understand that it wasn't cool to have me just doing hotel nights and everyone got private jets all over the world. I don't even have anything worthy from our relationship." Wow. Doesn't that say it all? They spoke often by text and on the phone about their relationship throughout July, she said. At one point, Jane texted Combs, quote, "My dumb ass thought if I fucked more and did more hotels, I'd finally get a trip." And it's really showing right here, look, I've already told you my feelings on Jane in the last episode, but isn't it really showing up right here in her responses? What is she pissed off about? The freak-offs or the fact she didn't get all these trips? And we'll move on. At the end of July, they planned for Jane to visit Combs in Miami, and they stayed at the Four Seasons, Jane confirmed. Now, Jane said she and Combs generally had a good time at the Four Seasons. She had previously testified that at one point during the Miami trip, she told Combs she was tired and she wanted to go to sleep. She said that agitated him. He splashed water on her, called her a bitch, and then apologized. Geragos then asked Jane if she had first told prosecutors that story on June 1st, of this year, y'all, which is the first she's saying prosecutors heard that story in just a few days before her testimony. And Jane agreed and said it was a new memory that just sprung up in her mind. She confirmed that at one point at the hotel, she told Combs she missed Paul. He was one of the men, obviously, that joined them for hotel nights. And she testified she had taken ecstasy when she said that, but did say that she missed Paul at that moment. So she ended up calling Paul, who said he'd meet them in Miami in a few days. And Jane confirmed she had sex with Paul a few days later at Combs' Miami home when she took a different type of drug. Geragos asked if Jane felt in control and if it was great as far as the sex was concerned, and Jane agreed. Jane said that she described the night to prosecutors as a love fest, and she testified they ended the Miami trip with a fight about another woman, but they continued talking. In text messages after the summer 2024 Miami trip, Jane and Combs talked about seeing a therapist. She said they discussed that they loved each other so much, but all the toxic stuff was still coming up. Geragos asked Jane to confirm that she saw Combs one more time in Miami in August of 2024 before his September arrest, and Jane confirmed that and said it ended on a positive note, going on to say it was okay, but she confirmed that she told the defense in a pretrial meeting that it ended on a positive note. So the cross-examination ends at that point, and Maureen Comey, she does some redirect, and she referenced messages between Jane and Diddy from June of 2022. Quote, "I know what you want, baby, but not really in the mood for that part," Jane texted Combs. "Don't want to make you mad." And Jane testified that he had been hinting that he wanted an intimate night, and she said she didn't want to make him upset about that. She said that's usually the response I get from him when I decline those things, and that response was, quote, "all good." Comey then pulled up a message Combs sent to Paul, one of the men they met frequently to have hotel nights, a little over an hour later from the previous text, and it said, quote, "I'm gonna need you to persuade her." This from Combs. Jane testified she wasn't aware of that message being sent.
Jim, did you see what happened in Texas today?
Wait, before you tell me that, let me tell you what happened in New York.
It cannot be as crazy as the case I told you about yesterday in Louisiana.
You know what? We should do a podcast about it.
And with that, we did. Crime Wire Weekly covers the crime news headlines that have dominated the week.
We cover trending crimes from all over the country and even sprinkle in a few globally.
Crime Wire Weekly is available now wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Simply by searching Crime Wire Weekly or clicking the link in the description of this podcast. Comey revisited text messages Jane sent to Paul after the March 2023 trip to Turks and Caicos, when she ended a second hotel night early after they had been with an entertainer for 24 hours. She told Paul that Combs, quote, didn't make me feel like a human being. Jane also wrote, quote, it had been 24 hours with no breaks for me, and at first I was going to go with the flow for the second link up, but I warned him that I just felt overwhelmed to overperform for a moment like I've never done before. I'm not a robot, just a mix of tired, hungry, sleepy, and sore. Comey asked why Jane sent Combs affectionate messages after the Turks and Caicos trip if it was so disappointing, and Jane testified there was a confusing cycle of Combs showering her with love and affection when all the sexual exploitation would take place in between that. Quote, I was just able to compartmentalize all that bad stuff. All the loving messages are just me focusing on all the good parts of us. Jane testified she would fake orgasms with entertainers during hotel nights as well. Quote, I was putting on a show. Jane would sometimes send an entertainer a positive message about their time together, and she said that was just to make him feel good. As a matter of fact, she went on to say, I didn't want him to feel used. Comey asked Jane if she could remember the specific date of every hotel night throughout her entire relationship with Diddy, and of course, Jane said no. Comey then asked Jane if she wanted to remember every single hotel night with Combs, and Jane responded, I wish I could forget them. Comey then asked Jane why she brought up hotel nights to Combs when they had discussions about other women in his life. She testified that what I was trying to express every time I brought up women was why. Why do I have to be degraded in order to be with you? She went on to say, why do I have to break all my boundaries and compromise myself? But they don't have to, but they can still experience you in the way I want to. Comey then revisited a fight that Jane testified she had with Sean Combs. This was in August of 2023 over a proposed all-star party with more than one entertainer. Now, in testimony last week, Jane testified she initially proposed the party while she was high, but then backed off the plan, and that she and Combs argued because of that. She said Combs grew angry and accused her of lying and cheating on him. Now, last week, the jury heard that Jane and Combs had to reschedule the party because she had just got her period and sent him a photo as proof, and you can't make that shit up. The jury again heard about the photo today. Then the jury was presented with a text from Jane to Combs saying, quote, I reread all of our texts from the switch up to not feeling good to the accusations of me lying and playing you for money, and everything was fuck me. All because I ended up not feeling good and asking you if I could postpone. It went on to say you have flaked and disappeared so many countless times on me. I've nonstop given you these nights for 2.5 years, and this is the first time I just hit a wall and was honest and asking for space to go feel better. Now I'm waking up to more fuck me. I'm not a liar, a cheater, a user, or a sex object. I'm just as hurt and upset, and we need to have a serious talk about everything. Comey then revisited several text messages Jane sent Combs the day before that sobriety party we've talked about many times in the past. Some of the messages read, I don't want to be fucking mistreated. I don't feel like performing loveless, cold sex. I'm not a porn star. I'm not an animal. I need a break. I don't want to do anything. I've hit a wall. Goes on to say things like, it's been 3 years of me having to fuck strangers. I'm tired. Sex is sacred to me, and I can't be used like this anymore. I just wanted to make you happy, but it's creating a war inside me. I need a break. I can't be in another hotel room doing drugs and performing exhausted sex for days. Comey then asked Jane if Sean Combs was vulnerable or affectionate with her the night of June 18th when she said Combs assaulted her and then forced her to perform oral sex. I just told you about that earlier, and she described Combs' demeanor as evil. Jane testified earlier that he was vulnerable with her during hotel nights and the most affectionate with her after hotel nights. And Comey asked Jane about her injuries from that altercation. And Jane recounted that she had a black eye forming, a bruise on her leg, and 3 welts on her head. Quote, "How do you compare in strength to Sean?" Comey asked. And she said, "I don't," in response. Comey repeatedly asked Jane if Combs could have left safely at various points during the night, such as when she locked herself in different rooms or was curled up in a ball in the yard, and each time Jane responded yes. Comey asked Jane if she would give back all the money and gifts that she received from Combs if it meant never having to have sex with another man during their relationship. And Jane responded, yes. When asked, Jane said she had no financial stake in the outcome of the trial and is not expecting to receive any compensation for her testimony. Comey asked Jane why she was testifying at the trial, and she responded, because I was subpoenaed and I'm here. And with that, redirect examination was over. And then, in a kind of a rarity, Geragos then starts recross-examining Jane. And on recross, Geragos asked Jane a series of questions about the night of June 18th of 2024. This was, again, that night where they had the entertainer that performed oral sex on Jane. Remember, Diddy was busting open doors all over the house. Jane confirmed she knew the entertainer Antoine was coming over, that he had only her phone number, and that she drove her car to let Antoine into the neighborhood. And then Geragos said, well, couldn't you have left when you did that, when you let him into the neighborhood? Because they lived in a gated community. Jane said, yeah, she could, but she said she never told Antoine she didn't want him to come in. Jane also confirmed that she never told Antoine that she didn't want him to come in or that she didn't want to engage in sex with him. When asked, Jane also confirmed she knew Combs was the subject of a federal investigation at that point and had a criminal lawyer representing her. Geragos referenced Jane's response on redirect that she would give all the money and gifts back if it meant she never had to have sex with other men during her relationship with Diddy. Quote, you were not willing to give up your home, though, right? Jane responded, that's where me and my child live. That's a very hard question to answer. Geragos pressed further. You wanted to stay in a home you and your child lived in? And Jane responded, I was in the position. That's a very hard question. Geragos confirmed Jane gets almost $5,000 in monthly child support from her child's father, who they termed as a wealthy individual. And I told you on the last episode who that was. She also asked Jane how much she makes monthly through OnlyFans. And Jane said she makes more than $10,000 per month. And the most she's ever made in 1 month is $50,000. Geragos suggested Jane could afford her own rent. And she's right about that. Jane said she's catching up on 3 years of debt. Geragos also confirmed that Combs gave her more than $150,000 in addition to paying her rent in the 3 years they were involved. And Jane said, is that all I'm worth in 3 years? Then she eventually answered yes to the question. Geragos then asked, did you want more than that? And Jane replied, do you think I'm worth more than that? And Geragos said, I'm asking if you wanted more than that. And Jane said no. Geragos asked Jane to confirm she saw Sean Combs a few times in the weeks after the sobriety party in October of 2023, including when she gifted him a portable TV for his birthday so he could watch pornography or videos from past hotel nights during their movie night. And Jane said she gave him the TV, quote, so I could protect myself from not having sex with other men. Geragos pointed out that Combs would use the TV to watch videos of Jane having sex with other men. Quote, I bought the TV so that it could be an option instead of me having to have sex with other men, Jane said again. And then Geragos suggested there were several more times Jane would not have sex with the entertainers during their movie nights. Jane just responded to that. All of it was shit. Now, just before Jane gets off the stand, Geragos asked Jane if Combs would say throughout their relationship that if she wanted to break up, they could break up. And she said, quote, just because he said that, that's not what he meant. She also acknowledged she did not want to break up with him. And the judge at that point told Jane, make sure you just answer the questions you're asked. But the defense had no further questions. And with that, Jane was off the stand, and in a highly unusual move This is important. As Jane left the witness stand, she stopped and she embraced prosecutor Maureen Comey. She continued to walk. Then she glared at Sean Combs and leaned in to hug defense attorney Tina Geragos. Geragos' shoulders at this point twitched, which kind of suggested she was caught off guard. And when these hugs occurred, the jurors were still in the courtroom. It's very strange. The jury was dismissed for the day. Thank you so much for listening. Check out the Patreon, commercial-free early releases, bonus episodes, files, quarterly gifts, patreon.com/exposed podcast files. And until next time, for Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.
Breaking news from the stadium tonight as an anonymous fan foot the bill for 55,000 hot dogs, bringing that sweet tubed meat to everyone in attendance.
Free dogs! Yeah!
55,000 hot dogs? What does that even cost?
While the identity of this Frankfurter philanthropist remains anonymous, their all-beefy generosity will go down in history.
The new Mega Millions. More to win means more to give. How you spend it is up to you.
Yeah!
For game odds and details, visit SCEducationLottery.com.